The first sign my wife no longer respected our marriage wasn't the girls' trip. It wasn't the silence, or the blocked calls, or even the way one of her friends couldn't look me in the eye when they got back. It was the fact that she left for the trip on our anniversary weekend like she was heading out to buy groceries. My name's Liam. I'm 36, I teach 8th grade history in a public school just outside Albany, and until that weekend, I still believed that if a marriage was in trouble, both people would at least pretend it mattered. Mara and I had been married for 8 years. No kids. Just the two of us in a second-floor condo with squeaky kitchen tiles, a narrow balcony that overlooked the parking lot, and a kind of quiet that used to feel peaceful. In the beginning, we were good together. Not perfect, not one of those couples who posted anniversary tributes every month or acted like they were still in some honeymoon fog, but real. We had rhythm. Friday takeout. Sunday grocery runs. Her falling asleep halfway through movies with one leg across mine. Me waking up early and making coffee while she stood in the kitchen in one of my t-shirts, still half asleep, talking about dreams she could barely remember. Back then, she liked me. That sounds small, but it matters more than people admit. You can survive arguments. You can survive financial stress, family problems, dry spells, all of it. What starts killing a marriage is when one person stops liking the other on a daily basis. Stops being soft with them. Stops choosing warmth when coldness would be easier. Looking back, that shift started months before the trip. At first it came in little cuts. Mara stopped reaching for me in passing. She used to touch my shoulder when she walked by, or lean against me while waiting for the microwave, or rest her hand on my knee in the car without thinking. Then one day I realized I couldn't remember the last time she touched me first. After that, everything got more efficient. Her kisses became quick and dry, like she was stamping approval on a form. Her voice flattened out at home. If I asked how her day was, I got one-word answers unless it was about her job, and even then it felt like she was briefing me, not talking to me. She worked in marketing for a regional furniture chain, mostly from a downtown office with one work-from-home day every week. I'd hear her laugh on Zoom calls from the spare bedroom hard enough to make the walls carry it, but when I tried to get that same version of her at dinner, all I got was exhaustion and a phone screen. I told myself it was stress. Her company had gone through some restructuring. New management. More pressure. More late evenings. That was believable. So I adjusted. I cooked more often. I kept the condo cleaner. I stopped asking as many questions when she wanted to be alone. I thought maybe if I made life easier, she'd come back to me on her own. She didn't. What she did do was start going out more with her friends. Not every night. Nothing cartoonish. Just enough to create that nagging feeling that I was becoming optional in my own marriage. Brunches that ran long. Happy hours after work that turned into late dinners. Saturday shopping trips that somehow ate up the whole afternoon. Her closest group was 4 women she'd known since college: Tessa, Brooke, Nina, and Valerie. I'd met them all plenty of times. Tessa was loud and polished and always talked like everyone in the room needed her summary of events. Brooke was recently divorced and wore her bitterness like expensive perfume. Nina was quieter but always seemed to know more than she said. Valerie was the only one I genuinely liked. She had that rare quality of seeming normal even when everyone else was performing. The anniversary weekend trip was Tessa's idea. Mara mentioned it on a Tuesday night while I was rinsing dishes after dinner. She was sitting at the counter, scrolling her phone, not looking at me. Tessa wants to do a girls' weekend in Lake George, she said, like she was mentioning the weather. I turned off the faucet and looked at her. This weekend? Yeah. I waited a second because I thought she'd say more. Maybe that she told them no. Maybe that she realized the problem herself. Our anniversary was Saturday. 8 years. Not one of those milestone numbers people make speeches over, but enough to matter. Enough that a husband shouldn't have to point it out. When she didn't say anything else, I dried my hands and asked, "You mean our anniversary weekend?" That got me a sigh. Not guilt. Not surprise. A sigh. It's just 2 nights, Liam. Just 2 nights. I remember the exact tone because of how casual it was. Like I was being tedious for noticing. Like the issue wasn't that my wife wanted to spend our anniversary weekend away, but that I was forcing her to acknowledge the timing. I asked if she was serious. She set her phone down then, finally looking at me, and I could already see where the conversation was going before either of us finished it. Mara had developed this way of acting tired before a disagreement even started, as if my feelings were exhausting her in advance. "It's not a big anniversary," she said. "We can do dinner another night." I laughed, But there was nothing funny in it. That's not really the point. What is the point, then? The point was that I was standing in my own kitchen explaining basic marriage to my wife. The point was that I knew, even then, this wasn't about one trip. It was about what kind of message a woman sends when she treats her husband like he should be grateful to get rescheduled. I told her that if she wanted to go, I wasn't going to physically stop her, but I thought it was a messed up choice. She crossed her arms after that. Small thing, but telling. That was always the posture she took when she wanted to turn herself from partner into opponent. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be," she said. "No," I told her. "You're making us smaller than we should be." That landed, but not the way I hoped. She looked away, jaw tight, like I'd insulted her instead of describing exactly what she was doing. She said she needed a break. Said Tessa had already booked the hotel. Said everyone was going. Said it was just one weekend and I'd survive. That word got me. Survive. Like being married to me had become some burden she needed relief from, and I was supposed to smile and wave while she took it. I didn't beg. That's something I'm still glad about. I told her to do what she wanted. And that was the problem, really. She did. The rest of the week felt off in ways that were hard to name but impossible not to feel. She was lighter when she texted her friends than when she spoke to me. More animated packing for that trip than she had been about anything involving us in months. On Thursday night I came into the bedroom and found outfits spread across the bed, shoes lined up on the floor, makeup bag open, that black dress she usually saved for nicer nights out laid flat like it had already been chosen. I asked why she needed a dress like that for a girls' weekend in Lake George. She didn't even look up. Just said Tessa wanted to go somewhere nice. Somewhere nice. I stood there watching my wife pack for our anniversary weekend like she was preparing for escape. She folded the black dress carefully. Then heels. Then perfume. Not much room in there for the story she was selling me. Friday morning, she was up before me. I found her in the kitchen with travel coffee in a tumbler, suitcase by the door, phone in hand. She looked good. Too good for a cabin-style weekend with girlfriends if I was being honest. Hair done. Makeup light but deliberate. Gold hoop earrings she didn't usually bother with unless photos were involved. I poured myself coffee and asked what time they were leaving. In like 10. No warmth. No softening. No moment where she came over and kissed me and said she knew this was bad timing, that she loved me, that we'd make it right. Nothing. Just logistics. When the rideshare notification buzzed on her phone, she grabbed the suitcase handle and headed for the door like she couldn't get out fast enough. I followed because what else was I supposed to do, sit there like it was a normal Friday? At the door, she finally looked at me. I wanted something from that moment. Not a dramatic apology. Just some sign that I still mattered enough for this to feel awkward. Instead, she gave me a quick side hug, more shoulder than chest, and said, "Don't be weird this weekend, okay?" Then she left. I stood in the hallway listening to her suitcase wheels rattle over the concrete outside. A second later, I heard laughter from downstairs. Women's voices. Car doors. Then silence. I went back inside and looked around the condo. Her coffee smell still hung in the kitchen. One of her earrings backs was sitting on the bathroom counter. A sweater she decided not to take was draped over the bedroom chair. All these small, ordinary traces of a woman who lived here. A woman who, for some reason, had no problem walking out on her anniversary weekend like the life we built could wait its turn. I told myself not to spiral. Told myself maybe I was seeing insult where there was only selfishness. Maybe it really was just a girl's trip. Maybe she'd cool off, text me later, say something kind, something that sounded like a wife instead of a resentful roommate. Around noon, I sent her a simple message. Drive safe. No reply. At 2:17, I tried calling just to make sure they'd gotten there. The call rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I frowned and tried again. Straight to voicemail. That was the first time it crossed my mind that my wife might have blocked me. And the worst part was, when that thought hit me, it didn't feel impossible. It felt like the kind of thing a woman says with a sigh afterward, like her husband forced her into it just by caring. I stared at my phone for a long time after that second call went straight to voicemail. At first, I told myself there were normal explanations. Bad signal on the road. Dead battery. Phone on Do Not Disturb. One of those little glitches people use to calm themselves down before the uglier possibilities start taking shape. But the problem was, Mara wasn't careless with her phone. She was the opposite. She lived on it. Group chats, work emails, Instagram, calendar reminders, delivery notifications. Her phone was practically an extra limb. If it suddenly became unreachable twice in a row, that meant something. I tried not to let my mind run ahead of me. I put the phone down, cleaned the kitchen even though it was already clean, took out the trash, changed the sheets, and tried to move through the condo like a normal man on a normal Friday. But every room reminded me what weekend it was. Our anniversary card for her was still in the drawer of my nightstand because I'd bought it on Wednesday and hadn't given it to her yet. I'd planned to leave it on her plate at dinner Saturday night, probably at that little Italian place near the river where we'd gone 2 years earlier. I had even made a reservation. Quiet table. Good wine. Familiar place. Something steady. Something married. Instead, I was standing alone in a condo that felt too still, wondering whether my wife had blocked me before she even reached Lake George. By late afternoon I checked her location out of habit. We'd shared locations years ago for convenience and never really thought about it after that. But when I opened the app, her location wasn't showing. That hit me in a different way. Because now it wasn't just missed calls. It was layers. Calls going straight to voicemail. Location off. No reply to a basic text. Maybe each one had a harmless explanation on its own. Together, they started to feel arranged. At 5:40, I got my first message from her. Just 3 words. Busy. Talk later. Nothing else. No explanation, no sorry, no acknowledgement that our anniversary weekend had turned into me getting shut out like some clingy guy she needed distance from. I stared at the screen, waiting for the rest of the message that never came. I didn't answer right away because I knew anything I sent would come from the wrong place. Hurt, irritation, disbelief. None of it would help. So I set the phone face down and poured myself a drink I didn't really want. An hour later, Marcus called. Marcus has been my closest friend since college. He teaches biology at a different middle school across town, coaches wrestling in the winter, and has the kind of voice that always sounds like he already knows more than he's saying. He was supposed to meet me for a beer the next week, but he called because he remembered what weekend it was. He asked how the anniversary trip was going. I told him there wasn't one. There was a pause on the line, then I gave him the stripped-down version. Girls' trip. Bad timing. Cold attitude. Calls going to voicemail. Location off. That was enough for him to go quiet in the way good friends do when they realize you are not exaggerating. He didn't jump to conclusions. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. He just said the whole thing sounded disrespectful. Not suspicious first. Disrespectful. And somehow that word landed harder, because that was the piece I had been trying not to look at directly. Suspicion can still leave room for confusion. Disrespect is clearer. After I got off the phone with him, I heated leftovers and ate standing at the kitchen counter. I kept glancing at the chair where Mara usually dropped her purse. The condo looked normal in the cruelest possible way. Her shoes were still by the door. Her face wash was still on the sink. Her half-finished book was still on the coffee table with the receipt she'd been using as a bookmark. It felt like she had stepped out of our life without any sense that it might wound me, and that was somehow harder to accept than if we had been fighting. Around 9, I sent her another text. "Are you seriously blocking me?" This time she answered after 15 minutes. She said I was being dramatic. She said the service had been bad. She said her battery was low and she didn't want to spend the weekend glued to her phone. Then she added that I needed to relax and stop making everything a problem. That phrase stayed with me. Because it was always the same pattern with Mara lately. She would do something cold, I would react like a normal husband, and somehow the burden shifted onto me for having a reaction at all. By the end of it, I was the difficult one. The needy one. The one who couldn't let anything go. I typed out 3 different responses and deleted all of them. Then I just wrote that it was our anniversary weekend and hearing from my wife once in a while did not count as unreasonable. She didn't reply. Saturday morning was worse. I woke up early because that's what I always do, even on weekends, and for about 5 seconds I forgot she was gone. Then I turned toward her side of the bed and saw the cold empty sheet, and everything came back at once. The trip. The voicemail. The location being off. The way she told me not to be weird before walking out the door like I was the embarrassing part of the marriage. I made coffee and sat on the balcony even though it was colder than I expected. The parking lot below was wet from overnight rain. A couple in the next building were loading grocery bags into the back of an SUV, moving around each other in that easy, practiced way long-term couples do when they still see each other as teammates. I hated how much I noticed that. At 10:08, I got a text from Mara. Not happy anniversary. Not thinking of you. Not sorry again for the trip. She sent a photo. It was 4 drink glasses on an outdoor patio table with lake water in the background. Tessa's hand was visible in the frame, covered in bracelets. Brooke's sunglasses were on the table. Mara added a caption saying they had finally made it out to brunch and the weather was perfect. I looked at that photo until my jaw tightened. That was what she sent me on the morning of our anniversary. Not something for us. Not even something pretending to be for us. Just proof that she was having a nice time away from me, like I should be grateful for the update. I didn't answer. Around noon, I drove out to my brother Evan's place because sitting in the condo was making my thoughts louder. Evan's younger than me by 3 years, works in commercial roofing, and has never had much patience for people who treat loyalty like a weakness. He took one look at my face when I walked in and knew this wasn't a casual visit. I told him most of it while we stood in his garage pretending to organize tools we both knew were already organized. He asked if I thought she was cheating. I told him I didn't know. That was the truth then. Or at least the only truth I could prove. What I knew for sure was that she was somewhere between indifferent and irritated by my existence, and that wasn't a small thing anymore. It had shape, weight, direction. Evan said something that got under my skin on the drive home. He said when a woman starts acting like your attention is the inconvenience, it usually means she wants the benefits of marriage without the accountability of it. That night, I tried calling again. Straight to voicemail. I didn't text after that. I just sat in the dark living room with the TV on mute, phone in my hand, replaying the last 6 months like there had been clues I should have respected sooner. The dry kisses. The late work nights. The constant friend outings. The way she acted like every reasonable question was an accusation. The way she packed that black dress for a girls' weekend and expected me not to notice. Then, a little after 11, my phone lit up. It wasn't Mara. It was Valerie. And before I even opened the message, I knew something was wrong. I stared at Valerie's name on my screen for a second before opening the message. Valerie never texted me directly unless there was a reason. Birthdays, group plans, maybe something practical if Mara left her jacket somewhere after dinner. That was it. She wasn't cold exactly, just not the kind of person who created unnecessary side channels in other people's marriages. So when her name popped up at 11:14 on my anniversary night while my wife was still barely speaking to me, my stomach dropped before I even read the words. "You awake?" That was all it said. I sat up straighter on the couch and typed back that I was. The typing bubble appeared. Disappeared. Came back. Disappeared again. Then finally. "I probably shouldn't be texting you." I looked at that sentence for a long time. Not because I didn't understand it. Because I understood it too fast. I asked if Mara was okay. Another delay. Then Valerie said yes, she was physically fine, and that phrasing alone made my chest tighten. Physically fine. Not fine. Not good. Not having fun. Just physically fine, like she was answering a liability question. I called Valerie right then. She declined it. A second later, another text came through. "Can't talk. They're all still up." They? That meant she wasn't alone. Maybe in the same hotel room. Maybe in a suite. Maybe on some balcony with Tessa and Brooke and Nina still drinking and laughing while I sat in a dark condo trying to understand why my own wife felt like a stranger. I kept my replies short after that. I asked what was going on. I asked why she was texting me instead of Mara. I asked if something had happened. Valerie took nearly a full minute to answer. "I think you need to pay attention when she gets back." I read that line 3 times. Not panic. Not call the police. Not come get your wife. Just pay attention when she gets back. It was vague enough to protect her and sharp enough to gut me. I asked what that meant. She didn't answer. I asked if Mara was with someone. Still nothing. Then the typing bubble came back one last time. "I'm sorry. That's all I can say right now." And that was it. No follow-up. No clarification. No explanation. I called again. Declined. Then silence. I slept maybe 2 hours that night, and neither of them were clean hours. I kept drifting off and snapping awake with the phone in my hand, like I might miss the one message that turned all of this back into something explainable. But morning came with nothing from Valerie and almost nothing from Mara either. At 9:32 Sunday morning, Mara texted that they were checking out soon and heading home later that afternoon. No mention of my calls. No mention of our anniversary. No mention of the fact that one of her closest friends had just told me, in the most careful language possible, to watch my wife when she came back. That changed the whole shape of things. Up until that point, I had still been reacting. Hurt, yes. Suspicious, Yes. But mostly reacting. Valerie's text pushed me into something else. I started thinking less like a husband trying to preserve peace and more like a man who might already be the last one to know the truth. So I stopped reaching. I didn't call Mara again. Didn't text to ask when she'd be home. Didn't remind her there was food in the fridge or ask how the drive was going. I let the silence sit there and used it. Sunday afternoon, I cleaned the condo top to bottom, but not because it needed it. I needed motion while I thought. I stripped the bed, vacuumed the bedroom, wiped down the bathroom counter, took Murphy's bowl to the sink, folded the throw blanket on the couch. All the while, my mind kept circling the same things. The blocked calls. The turned-off location. The photo of drinks on the patio instead of a simple anniversary message. The black dress. And Valerie. Especially Valerie. Because nervous people do one of two things when they know something ugly. They either avoid you completely, or they leak around the edges. Valerie had leaked. Just enough to ease her conscience without fully crossing the line. That told me two things I couldn't ignore: she knew something, and whatever she knew felt real enough that she couldn't sit on it comfortably. By the time Mara texted that they were about 40 minutes out, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to confront her at the door. I wasn't going to start with accusations. I wanted to see what version of herself walked back into this condo when she thought she was still in control of the story. Her rideshare pulled up just after 6. I watched from the balcony as Tessa got out first from the front passenger seat, laughing about something with Brooke. Then Mara stepped out of the back. Sunglasses on even though the sun was already dropping. Overnight bag over one shoulder. Phone in hand. She didn't look wrecked or ashamed or even irritated. She looked composed. That bothered me more than anything. Valerie got out last. And there it was. She glanced up toward the building, saw me on the balcony, and immediately looked away. Fast. Guilty. Almost panicked. She said something to Mara that I couldn't hear. Mara didn't even turn toward her. Just rolled her suitcase to the curb, waited for the trunk, and kept moving like nothing about this weekend required careful management. That told me plenty on its own. When Mara came through the door, I was in the kitchen pouring water into Murphy's bowl. I wanted to be doing something ordinary when she entered. I wanted the scene to feel quiet enough that any tension came from her, not from me. She walked in, dropped her bag by the chair, and gave me the kind of quick smile you'd give a neighbor you pass in the hallway. Hey! That was it. Not I'm home. Not sorry this weekend got weird. Not happy anniversary, even late and useless. Just hey. I said hey back and watched her. She bent down to pet Murphy, then headed straight for the bathroom with her phone in her hand. She was in there longer than necessary. Long enough that I knew she was doing something before she re-entered the room I was in. Freshening up, maybe. Or more likely deleting, checking, warning, resetting. People clean up before they lie to your face. Some do it with language. Some do it with phones. When she came back out, she asked if I had eaten. I said no. She nodded like we were discussing weather patterns and said she was starving. Then she ordered takeout from her phone without asking what I wanted. Thai. For one dish she knew I didn't like and one I did. A peace offering disguised as logistics. Efficient. Manageable. Easier than conversation. While we waited, I studied her. Not obviously. Just enough. She looked good for someone who had supposedly spent 2 nights doing nothing but relaxing with girlfriends. Hair freshly brushed. Nails still perfect. Skin bright in that way people get when they've been energized, not when they've been resting. And there was something else too. A low hum under her. Not guilt exactly. More like distraction. Like part of her attention was still somewhere outside this condo, checking for reactions, updates, aftershocks. At one point her phone buzzed on the counter while she was in the pantry getting Murphy's treats. The screen lit up. She moved fast when she saw me glance toward it. Too fast. She snatched it up, turned it over, and said it was Tessa sending photos from the trip. I just nodded. Then I asked how Valerie was feeling. That was the first test. The question was simple enough to seem random, but not really. Mara paused just a fraction before answering. Then she said Valerie was fine, just tired from the drive. Interesting choice, considering Valerie had texted me at nearly midnight sounding like her nerves were chewing through her. I asked if everybody had fun. Mara said yes. I asked where they went Saturday night. She named a wine bar in Saratoga on the way up, then said they mostly stayed local after that. Mostly. There's a word people use when they want flexibility later. I let it sit there and changed the subject. The takeout came, And we ate at the kitchen island under that same warm overhead light where she told me 4 days earlier that our anniversary weekend was just 2 nights. She talked more than she had before the trip, but none of it meant anything. Tessa got too drunk at brunch. Brooke flirted with a bartender. Nina lost one of her earrings in the hotel room. Surface details. Pre-selected noise. The kind of story people tell when they know the truth lives elsewhere. I noticed Valerie never came up unless I brought her up. That mattered too. After dinner, Mara went to shower. The second the bathroom door closed, I walked over to the chair where she dropped her bag. I wasn't proud of that. But I was done confusing pride with blindness. Her overnight bag was half-zipped. On top was the black dress, folded inside out like it had been worn in a hurry and stuffed away after. Next to it was her makeup pouch, a charger, perfume, and a small paper wristband from somewhere. Dark blue. No logo visible at first. I picked it up carefully and turned it over. The Harbor Room, VIP Saturday. My pulse kicked hard. That wasn't a cabin lounge in Lake George. That sounded like a club. Or a private event. Or at the very least, somewhere nicer and more deliberate than the casual girls' weekend she'd sold me. I put the wristband back exactly where I found it and zipped the bag the same way. Then I took out my phone and made a note. Harbor Room. VIP Saturday. Valerie nervous. Mara defensive. That night, Mara climbed into bed beside me and acted like normal was something she could just re-enter by force. She asked if I had a rough weekend. She rested one hand lightly on my forearm for maybe 2 seconds, the first voluntary touch she'd given me in weeks, and somehow that made my skin crawl. Because now it felt strategic. I said I was fine. She said good, then rolled over and checked her phone under the blanket. The glow lit the fabric for a second before disappearing. I lay there staring into the dark, listening to her breathing settle, and understood something clearly for the first time. Whatever happened on that trip, Mara came home believing she could outmanage it. She thought she could smooth the edges, offer just enough normal, and wait for my doubts to die of embarrassment. What she didn't know yet was that I had stopped needing her version of events. By Monday morning, I wasn't trying to decide whether something happened anymore. I was trying to figure out exactly what, exactly where, and exactly who Valerie was so afraid I might find out. Monday started like any other school day, which felt insulting. The bell schedule still mattered. Kids still forgot homework. 2 boys in third period still argued over a map worksheet like it was a federal case. The copier still jammed in the faculty room. Everything around me kept moving with that normal, indifferent rhythm the world has when your private life is cracking open and nobody else can hear it. But I wasn't in any of it, not really. All day, my mind stayed on 2 things, the Harbor Room wristband and Valerie's face in the parking lot when she saw me on the balcony. One was physical proof that Mara had lied about the kind of weekend this was. The other was proof that somebody else knew exactly how bad the lie was. At lunch, I sat in my classroom with the lights off and my sandwich unopened, and I searched for the Harbor Room. It took less than a minute. Not Lake George. Not some cozy restaurant attached to the hotel. It was a club in Saratoga. Upscale. Bottle service, DJs, private sections, that whole polished nightlife scene that makes people in their 30s act like they're still young enough to make bad decisions without consequences. Their social media had public photos from Saturday night. A special event. VIP packages. Group reservations. I scrolled through dozens of pictures, each one making my chest tighten a little more. Women posing with cocktails. Men in fitted shirts with practiced smiles. Crowded dance floor. Dark lights. Tables packed close together. It was exactly the kind of place you don't accidentally end up if the plan was a quiet girls' weekend. I didn't see Mara in the first set of photos. Then I clicked into another gallery. There she was. Not blurry. Not in the background. Center left in a photo near the bar, wearing the black dress she packed on our anniversary weekend. Hair down. Hand around a drink. Smiling in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in months. And next to her was a man I didn't know. He wasn't just standing nearby. He was angled toward her in that familiar, easy way people get when they've already crossed the line from strangers to something else. One of his hands was low on her back. Not high enough to be friendly. Not obvious enough to excuse. Just intimate enough that any husband looking at it would feel the truth before he could fully explain it. I sat there staring at the screen until the fluorescent hum of my classroom started sounding louder than my own breathing. That should have been enough. Honestly, it was enough. But once a person lies to you long enough, your mind starts craving the complete shape of the betrayal. Not because more pain helps. Because uncertainty becomes its own kind of poison. I needed the full picture. Not for revenge. Not even for confrontation anymore. I needed it because I was tired of living one step behind the truth. So after school, I called Valerie. She didn't answer. I waited 10 minutes and called again. This time she picked up, but she didn't say hello right away. I could hear her breathing. Cars passing somewhere near her. The hollow noise of a person who already knows why you're calling. I told her I found the harbor room photos. Silence. Then I told her I wasn't calling to scream at her or drag her into the middle of my marriage. I just wanted to know whether I was still missing something. She exhaled hard after that, and I knew I had reached the point where keeping quiet was costing her more than telling me. What she gave me wasn't dramatic. That almost made it worse. She said the girls' trip had stopped being just a girls' trip before they even left Albany. Tessa and Brooke knew there were going to be men meeting them in Saratoga on Saturday night. Not random men. Men they'd already been talking to. The plan had been built into the weekend. The dinner. The club. The private table. Mara knew. Mara agreed. Valerie and Nina thought it was trashy, but neither of them blew it up before the trip because they thought maybe the whole thing would stay flirtatious and stupid instead of turning into something uglier. It didn't. Valerie said the guy in the photo had been messaging Mara before the trip. She didn't know for how long. She said his name was Chris, some friend of a friend from one of Tessa's old work circles. She said Mara acted nervous before meeting him, but not guilty. Excited nervous. The kind of nervous that belongs to someone stepping towards something they already want. Then Valerie told me the part that stayed with me the most. She said Mara disappeared with him for over an hour Saturday night. Not vanished into another city. Not gone until morning. Just long enough. Long enough that everyone noticed. Long enough that Brooke covered for her with jokes. Long enough that Valerie stopped being able to tell herself this was just a messy girls' weekend. I asked if Mara went back to the hotel alone. Valerie hesitated before answering, and that hesitation said more than the words did. Then she told me Mara came back around 2 in the morning looking dazed, quiet, and irritated that Valerie was still awake. That was enough. I thanked her, and I meant it. She sounded relieved and miserable at the same time. Before hanging up, she said she was sorry. Not in the lazy way people say sorry when they want to escape discomfort. In the heavy way. The way a person says it when they know they watched someone else's marriage get dragged somewhere ugly and didn't stop it fast enough. I drove home in a kind of silence I don't think I'll ever forget. Not rage. Not panic. Just that hollow, stripped-down feeling you get when the last piece finally clicks into place and there is nothing left to protect. I kept thinking about Saturday morning, that photo of the drinks on the patio, how she sent me that on our anniversary like a placeholder wife performing just enough contact to keep me manageable while the real weekend unfolded somewhere else. When I got home, Mara was already there, sitting at the kitchen island with her laptop open and takeout containers beside her. Domestic scene. Soft overhead light. Her hair clipped up. The image of a woman having an ordinary Monday. It was such a clean picture that for half a second I understood how people gaslight themselves for years. How they look at the furniture of a life and mistake it for the life itself. She looked up and asked how work was. That almost made me laugh. I set my keys down, walked to the counter, and turned my phone so the harbor room photo faced her. I watched her expression change in stages. First confusion. Then recognition. Then that quick internal tightening of someone searching for a version of events they can still survive with. I asked who he was. She tried the smallest lie first. Said it was just a picture. Just a guy from the club. Nothing happened. So I told her Valerie had already spoken to me. That broke whatever structure she'd been trying to build. Her face lost color. She sat back slowly, and for the first time in months she looked at me like I was fully real again. Not annoying. Not inconvenient. Dangerous to the story she'd been telling herself. I asked if she slept with him. She started crying before she answered, which told me everything. Then she said it only happened once. As if the number mattered. As if betrayal on your anniversary weekend becomes manageable if it can fit inside a smaller sentence. I asked how long she'd been talking to him before the trip. A few weeks, she said. I asked if that was true. She looked down and said a couple of months. There it was. The real version always comes out in layers, each one uglier than the clean one offered first. I asked what exactly I had done that made it so easy for her to spend our anniversary with another man and come home acting irritated by my concern. She said it wasn't about one thing. Said we'd been distant. Said she felt unseen. Said life with us had become routine. That word hit me hard because routine was what I had been trying to honor. Routine was coffee in the morning, rent on time, remembering her mother's birthday, teaching school all day and still coming home ready to be kind. Routine was what grown people build when they mean their vows. She said she didn't plan for it to happen. But she packed the black dress. She turned off her location. She blocked my calls. She let me sit alone on our anniversary while she disappeared for an hour with another man and sent me patio drinks like I was some idiot husband too simple to notice the insult. So no, it didn't just happen. She made room for it. That was the sentence I gave her. Calmly. And I think my calm hurt her more than if I'd shouted. I told her I was done. Not for the night. Not until she explained more. Done. The aftermath was short because there wasn't really anything left to negotiate. Mara cried. She said she made a terrible mistake. She said she wanted to fix it. She asked if one horrible weekend had to erase 8 years. But it wasn't one weekend. It was the coldness before it. The disrespect during it. The lies after it. That was the marriage she had actually handed me. She left that night for Tessa's place with 2 duffel bags and red eyes. I stood in the doorway and watched her go, and I didn't feel victorious. Just clear. Later, I sat alone at the kitchen island where she had told me our anniversary was just 2 nights, and I realized something I wish I'd understood sooner. The trip didn't destroy my marriage. It revealed it.